and welcome to the Blessed Life Week 17. This is the Blessed Life by Robert Morris, and I hope that you've enjoyed joining in every week. And let's just get right into it. Remember, if you're on Facebook, like, comment, or send me a message. And if you're on YouTube, rate, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much, and I'm so grateful to all of you. All right, so the scripture comes from Deuteronomy 4, verse 23 through 24. Take heed to yourselves, lest you forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which he made with you, and make for yourselves a carved image in the form of anything which the Lord your God has forbidden you. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. The title of this is Breaking the Spirit of Mammon. In less politically correct times, before all things remotely Christian were purged from public schools, many high school students were required to read John Milton's epic poem, Paradise Lost. If you are one of them, you know this poem painted a pretty detailed picture of hell. In it, Milton showed Satan as a fallen commander-in-chief surrounded by his demon generals. Among them were Moloch, Dagon, Astarte, Osiris, and Belial. Each of these, of course, was the god of an idol-worshipping culture in ancient times and is mentioned in the Bible. But Milton's epic poem depicts another demon standing at Satan's side. The demon's name is Mammon. You may recognize Mammon as a New Testament word. Jesus mentions it in a couple of places. For example, in Matthew 6, Jesus declares, "No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and Mammon," verse 24. After reading this verse, you can see why Milton would lump a demon named Mammon in with all those Old Testament idols. Jesus clearly suggests that it is possible to serve Mammon instead of serving God, but he goes even further. Jesus states it's impossible to serve both at the same time. He says that if you will love the one and hate the other, you will be loyal to one and despise the other. According to Jesus, there's no middle ground, no half and half. But just as our God is a jealous God, Mammon is a jealous God too. Jesus certainly makes a striking contrast between the Spirit of God and the spirit of Mammon. But just what is Mammon? Mammon is an Aramaic word that essentially means riches, and apparently the Assyrians got the concept of a god of wealth from their neighbors, the Babylonians. Babylon was a city founded on pride and arrogance. Remember the account of the Tower of Babel in Genesis 11. At its heart, it's an attitude that says, man doesn't need God, we're self-sufficient. This is what the spirit of Mammon tries to tell us. You don't need God, trust in riches. In the biblical sense of the word, Mammon is the spirit that rests on money. Did you know that all money has a spirit on it? It either has the spirit of God or it has the spirit of Mammon. Money that is submitted to God and his purposes has the spirit of God on it, which is why it multiplies and cannot be consumed by the devourer. I'm convinced that money that has been submitted to God, wealth that is devoted to serving him rather than trying to replace him, is blessed by God. In a very real sense, God's spirit blesses it. On the other hand, money that is not submitted to God has the spirit of Mammon on it by default. That's why people often try to use money to control or manipulate others. It's why people think money can bring them happiness or fulfillment. Mammon is basically the spirit of the world, and that spirit is a liar. Now, the next part is the rule of Mammon. I have noticed that the people most under the influence of the spirit of Mammon tend to have the most fear about their money. That's why Jesus said you cannot serve God and serve Mammon. Matthew 6:24. Mammon wants to rule. The spirit of Mammon is looking for servants. It's seeking worshipers. It will promise you everything but deliver nothing. As Jesus clearly suggests, Mammon tries to take the very place of God. Pastor Jimmy Evans, senior pastor of Trinity Fellowship Church in Amarillo, Texas, said, "Mammon promises us those things that only God can give: security, significance, identity, independence, power, and freedom. Mammon tells us that it can insulate us from life's problems and that money is the answer to every situation." When you think about it, Mammon is nothing more than the system of this fallen world that stands in sharp position or opposition to God and his ways. For example, Mammon says to buy and sell. God says to sow and reap. Mammon says to cheat and steal. God says to give and receive. But more than anything, Mammon wants to rule. It's no coincidence that in the book of Revelation, the Antichrist attempts to dominate people through the use of economics, preventing people from buying or selling unless they submit to him. See verse 13 and 17 in Revelation. In this way, the brief rule of the Antichrist will be through the spirit of Mammon. Brief. It's no wonder Jesus said you cannot serve God and Mammon. Why? Because the spirit of Mammon stands in direct opposition to the spirit of God. Now, don't get the wrong idea. Money and mammon are not synonymous. Money is not inherently evil. One of the most frequently misquoted verses in all the Bible is 1 Timothy 6. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Verse 10. Notice the Bible doesn't say that money is the root of all kinds of evil. It says that the love or worship of money is the roots of all kinds of evils. In other words, greed, covetousness, and selfishness are all the manifestations of the spirit of Mammon. The reason we cannot serve God and Mammon is the spirit of Mammon is the opposite of the spirit of God. Mammon says to take, God says to give. Mammon is selfish, God is generous, and so on and so on. Mammon is a spirit, and as such talks to us all the time. Mammon says if you have the right credit cards, the right clothes, the right car, and if you live in the right neighborhood and you know the right people, you'll be happy and fulfilled. Mammon tells you that if you had more money, people would listen to you, your relationship problems would go away, and life would be sweet. And you would do what you want and go where you want and live where you want. Sadly, people in the world aren't the only ones susceptible to this kind of deception. Mammon sometimes engages in creative lying to ensnare Christians as well. The spirit of Mammon can get religious when it has to. For example, sometimes Mammon says, if you just had more money, you could really start helping people. Keep in mind, Jesus never told anyone the answer was more money. Money is not the answer to problems. God is. Remember that. Many times when we're under pressure, the thought will come to us, and it's actually Mammon speaking to us, that we need one of two things to happen. We either need God to drop a truckload of money on us. This daydream usually involves winning the lottery, a contest, or sweepstakes, or the death of a wealthy relative we didn't know about. Notice how the spirit of Mammon tries to position itself as a substitute for God. You either need God to work a miracle right now, or you need more money. That's simply a lie. We need God, period, point blank. This is precisely why I am very cautious of multi-level business opportunities. I've been invited many times to meetings where these opportunities are shared. I'm usually invited because someone has observed my God-given ability to communicate, and he or she wants to harness that gift for building the business. Of course, I'm not going to do that. God has given me the gift to get lost people saved and to teach his people the word. On occasions I've attended these meetings, I have seen the spirit of Mammon working in very subtle ways where Christians are concerned. Often the pitch is, if you were rich, just think of all the people you could help. Or your church or your favorite ministry will have everything it needs after you become a millionaire. My friend, God can help people without money. When we start thinking that most of our problems can be solved by having more money, it's a sign that we're under the influence of the spirit of Mammon. Don't misunderstand. Jesus is not telling us to hate money. He is saying that if we love God, we will hate Mammon, the greedy, selfish, lying, deceiving, antichrist-like spirit that operates through money worship. As Jesus proclaimed, either we will love one and hate the other, or we will be loyal to one and despise the other. See Matthew 6:24. We are to despise the spirit of Mammon that lies to people, promises everything but delivers nothing, and dares to try to take the place of God. Both God and Mammon are always talking to us. Every time we're praying about giving sacrificially to our local church or to a ministry, Mammon is whispering to us, or occasionally shouting. All right, so stay tuned for the food for thought.